today. I also want to say that I am very humbled by the invitation, and inshallah, with his help, with his guidance, and with his mercy, we hope that we will all live here a little more enriched as a result of our spending some time here together. I also want to say that I want to thank the believers here in Winston-Salem. Brother Imam Rashad seems like somebody who's been around forever and a day, not just 1978. But when I come here to this masjid, Masjid al-Mu'minun, I always feel a sense of not just welcome, but peace, serenity, and home. What I didn't put up here today that I do want to talk about, and I hope to fill in the gaps, I'm going to be talking about, I'm a movie buff, and if any of you have seen The Diary of a Mad Black Woman, I'm going to talk to you about the diary of an American or a Muslim American woman. I consider myself to be the, how do I want to say it? In politics they call, when you are a member of a, not lame duck, what's the word? No. It'll come to me. I'm at that ripe old age now that things, if I don't write them down, they don't always stay. But at any rate, I'm a product of North Carolina. And Winston-Salem, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham help to comprise all that I am. And I'm grateful. And I don't ever want to take that for granted because it has been a tremendous effort on the part of everyone. Some of you who may know me, some of you who may not. We're going to fill in the gaps just a little bit today. And we're going to talk to you about my background. Brother Imam Rashad and I were Hajj partners or Hajjis on Hajj back in 2001. And that was an awesome, awesome experience. And that's for another time and another day. There are folk here that we know. I want to acknowledge some of the believers that have been here during my Islamic formation and my growth. Brothers, both brothers and sisters. But in talking about my background, I think it's important to have what we call in education a contextual analysis. What that means is just a fancy word for saying, or a fancy phrase for saying or delving deeper into what makes a person. And so as we look at my contextual analysis, there'll be some things that some of you will be able to identify with because you were a part of all of that. And some of you may be able to take away with you because you have also experienced these things as well. And so with Allah's help, we want to use our guidebook, which we know as the Holy Quran, and we're going to look at some select verses from the Quran on the believers. It's very timely and very meaningful that this masjid is named Al-Mu'minun, the believers. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to look at the popular culture. I have a particular interest in the popular culture because I may not necessarily be a product of the popular culture, but as a young woman growing up, or as a young child growing up, I'm affected at this point in my development by the popular culture, and so are my children and my grandchildren. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm hoping that you all can identify with that, those of you who now have children and grandchildren. And then the last thing that we're going to do is to look at a challenge that I live with every day, and I'm hoping that all of us will gird under it and take that challenge and fulfill that challenge. Imam Irshad touched on it, and I'm going to embellish on it just a little bit more. We're all speaking the same language. I'm also wanting to say that it is very, I don't want to say unique, but I do want to say it's very appropriate that we have a Muslim sister here doing the Talim. If we know anything about this religion and the legacy of Islam, we know that there are outstanding women in our Islamic history, such as Sister Clara Muhammad. If we go back even further, we know that there are women who were around the Prophet, his wife, Lady Khadijah, his daughters, and his mother, and the wet nurse who nursed him. So there are significant women around the Prophet, and there are also significant women in our Islamic development here in America. And as I look out in the audience, there are some significant women here in the development of our Mu'minun as a community here. So we want to take a look at that, and we want to offer to some of our young people who may or may not be here, and if they're not here, that's okay. We're going to take the challenge back to them because it's about time to pass the baton. So I'm going to move through these areas, and inshallah, you will be able to get a glimpse of who this Muslim American woman is. Now, my background is that of an educator. I've been in education 33 years, and so as an educator, there's a certain persona that goes along with that. So I'm going to try to contain myself to the podium. I'm going to try. But I'm not one of those teachers who just stands at her desk or just sits at her desk. So be patient with me. And I know that there's a decorum, well, for Juma, but we're not in Juma. We're in Ta'aleem. So we will be able to hopefully make those concessions. When I think about my formation or for those of you who don't know that much about me, I'm going to turn this board around because, again, I say I'm an educator. And you're a good brother. That's okay. I'm just going to do something that I saw that was very impressive to me. And for the folk in the back, I heard somebody say, I don't have on my glasses. Now, this board is not going to allow me to do this, but I'm going to try. What's unique about this, and I'm just for the sake of time, we will have some interchange and some dialogue in a little bit, but what's unique about this, I heard Granddaddy Junebug do some recitation on the dash. And I don't know if you've ever heard his poem on the dash. But for me, that speaks to where I am and where I've come from. I was born October 17, 1951. My parents, Margaret and Kenneth, my late dad, became Muslims in 1953. And so from that point on to now, there have been things that have been shaping and molding who I am as an individual. And to abbreviate it, there's certain values that I've grown up with and that shape me as an individual. One is definitely hard work. Coming through the experience of the Nation of Islam back during the 60s and the early 60s when we moved here from Baltimore, Maryland, it was plowing, pioneering spirit, tearing up the earth literally to establish Islam. Same thing happened here in Winston-Salem. Same thing happened in Charlotte. And so the planting of seeds was a part of that experience. So that pioneering spirit of moving here and helping to establish Islam. So extremely hard work. I grew up in an environment, even before we came here, of parents who were social activists. So not only did my dad and my mother move here, and my father came before we did to help establish the religion, but there was a social consciousness. Daddy used to tell us when we were children, before Islam, he was ready to become, well, he was about to become a merchant marine and to go sailing throughout the country because he had gotten sick and tired of the environment here in America back in the 30s and 40s when African Americans were overtly oppressed. And so he was seeking to get out of this country and go somewhere else. And after hearing Islam being taken to Wilson Street to what he thought was going to be a jazz session and actually became a lecture, he accepted Islam, came home, threw out the hand. My mother was upset, was poor, and this man had lost his mind because, I mean, it was something to have ham on Sunday. So, at any rate, coming through all of that and moving here to North Carolina, you can, for some, I'm hoping that you you can stretch and imagine what it was like for a young person. And sister, come on up, because I'm speaking to the young folk. Move on up in front of those older folk. Distinguish yourself. There you go. All right. So my parents were social activists in the religious community, but they were also social activists in our broader community. And so with the notion of establishing Islam, welcome, glad to see you all here. With the notion of establishing Islam also came the exposure to the outer community. And growing up as the only child who was Muslim in the South, the Bible Belt, wearing a scarf and at that time calf-length dresses was just really woo, you know, this is some strange, weird person. But because of the nature of Sister Margaret, and if any of you know her, her mantra was, you get on out there, you do your best, you be the best at whatever and whatever it is, you excel in it. And so with that, that was part of my development. So during that time, I became president of the student body. I won speaking awards, and just you name it. I traveled. I did a whole lot of different things as a young person, and the exposure helped to form a sense of self-confidence. As the time progressed and we were ready to move out of the nation and transition into Islam proper, we had such notables in our home as Muhammad Ali, who would spend weeks at a time. Farrakhan, who would come and stay at our home, because during those 60s and 70s, black people weren't allowed to stay in hotels. Joe Tex, most of the older generation may know of Joe Tex, but the younger brothers and sisters may not necessarily. And Malcolm X. And so as a young person, when you see all of this, you know, it's one thing to be awed, but at the same time, there's an unrest in the society, so you're awed with the fact that these people are here with you in your own personal space, but you also know that you have to be kind of cool, because this is during a time when it wasn't cool to be Muslim. You know, every time we walked out of our door, there were newspaper people there clicking and taking pictures and all this kind of stuff, wanting something. And what my dad would say to us, don't say anything to the press. Don't say anything. Just keep on going, keep your head up, and keep on walking, keep on moving. So this was what I came out of. This is what I grew up. This is what shaped me as a Muslim American woman. Now, I want to, and we got some brothers and sisters here. I'm going to ask you to give some of the younger folks, and then some of you kind of disperse. Just give each one of those little slips of paper. You know, we live in a technology age, and technology has its place. It's good, it has its place, but it also has its disadvantages. And our intention today was to do a PowerPoint, because that's what I do in my work, was to do a PowerPoint. But my husband's been telling me, your computer, your laptop needs to be defragged. And so for those of you who know what all that's about, it's slowed up and it doesn't work as fast. And so we had to resort, and it's always good to come through a means that you know another way of doing something. And so at any rate, we resorted to measures that don't involve technology necessarily. But so with all of this that I went through as a young person, my formation, and I understand when Imam spoke at Duke, one of the classes last week, they asked, some of the divinity students asked him about his Islamic formation. It's just interesting that we're talking about this, because it helps to shape and frame who you are. And sometimes it's good to just think about it. How was I formed? What is it that makes me? This is the context. This is what you come out of. This is what makes you who and what you are. So with all of that, there is what I call self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is just a word that you are comfortable in the skin you're in. Sister Iman and I are longtime friends. She taught me how to drive back when I was 17 or 18 years old, so along with my dad. But self-efficacy is the notion of being comfortable with the skin you're in, and also knowing who you are and being able to advocate for for yourself. All right? So with that grew the whole notion of self-efficacy. And so there's certain quotes and things that I grew up with, and my husband says that after years, so we're going to write a book together, he and I, on some of the quips and quotes of Sheikh Kenneth Muhammad, because these are the quotes I grew up with. And so some of you have little strips of paper that have values. Can anybody read the first value that I have on it? If you have value 1, can you read that? Value 1. Anybody who has value 1? Okay, would you read it for us?
Do for self.
All right, that was one of the early values. My parents came here with $50 in their pocket. And I came home from school every day, elementary, middle, except for high school. My mother had gone to a Goodwill and had irons there for us to work, so they did for self. They didn't work on anybody's job. They made things do for themselves. So that, again, this is the self-efficacy that I grew up with, and the whole notion of do for self. We didn't go hungry. We may have had beans 7 days a week, but we had bean soup, bean burger, bean hash. Maybe on the weekend we had a little bean with some chicken cut up in it or whatever, but excuse me, we didn't go hungry, okay? And so these are some of the values that I grew up with. Excuse me. The second value, who has value number 2? Can you read it for us?
Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Oh, how many of you can identify with that? Pull yourself up. What does that mean? Come on, somebody besides me, because I'm coughing because I'm talking, I'm projecting. I forget that I have a microphone. I'm talking like I don't have a microphone. I'm so used to talking in a classroom. What does that mean, or what did that imply? Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Some of you from the Nation of Islam experience. Come on.
Taking responsibility for yourself.
Taking responsibility for yourself. Who else?
Not always depending on someone else.
Exactly. Exactly. Doing for yourself, taking responsibility, and, knowing that if it is to be, it's up to me. Okay? All right, value number 3. All right. Give a full day's work. Now, I'm going to tell you, we grew up at a time that, and the belief was, if you have to go on a man's job, give him the 8 hours. Sometimes as African Americans, our history has been one that we worked from sun up to sunset. But in this American society, if you are going to work, let's not take the attitude that I'm going to slough off on this job. Give a person their full day's work. Okay? Very good. Number 4, value number 4. Thank you so much.
Always give back to the community.
Always give back to the community. That's very important. That was something that you didn't get here by yourself. You got a community that you came out of. Help it. Do something for it. Okay? Anybody else want to add to that? Always give back to the community? Expand on that a little bit more? Yes.
Try to give and share with other people in the community, especially if you're a little bit more fortunate than other people.
Exactly.
Try to give back that way too.
Exactly.
And it's not always about giving money as versus giving some of your time, volunteering, doing certain things for other people.
Exactly. And we call it dawa now, or sadaka.
Yes.
But, right, giving back, helping others, because everybody is not as fortunate. Value number 5. I think I'm on value number 5. Yes.
Never forget where you come from.
What does that mean? Let me tell you something. Just because I got that little degree, it was always in my face. Don't ever forget where you come from. I don't care how much education you have. Always remember where you come from. All right. Anybody else? All right. Value number 6. Was that 6? All right.
If you take one step, Allah will take 2.
Allah will take 2. Now, what does that imply? What does that imply? Anybody? God helps those who help themselves. Don't sit there and wait for that boat to come in and drop down and think that that's all I got to do is sicker all day. Or to, pass it off and not take responsibility for my own action. There were many times growing up, and this is still part of my belief system, is that if I put forth the effort, somewhere out there Allah will make something happen for me, unbeknown to me. I don't know if I told you, Ma'am Rashad, where's Brother Waleed? Brother Waleed and I, when we were on Hajj, it's just interesting. It's just so many connectors here, and I just feel really at home. He and we had feet problems. When we were on Hajj, and I deal with a spur heel, and you know what Brother Waleed deals with, his feet. And at the end of our treks, because when you make Hajj, where we were standing wasn't that close, but at the end of our treks, you will have made 5 trips to the Harlem every day, 5 trips. And by the end of the day, bless his heart, his feet would be swollen. Mine wouldn't be swollen, but mine would be hurting. And so we would always be the lag ones coming up from the rear. We have a group of about, it was 400 of us who went, but he and I would always be the lag ones trying to come up from the rear. But what's interesting about it is that when you make your mind up to do something, Allah will bless that effort. I had made up my mind that I wanted to go to Hajj. It was at a point in my life that I really felt the need and the calling after 2 or 3 years. And so just started putting all my time, my energy, and my thoughts toward it. And I had been a part of a network marketing thing and hadn't made any money. And so, but the year that I decided to go to Hajj, checks start coming in. $700, $1,100. And every time I got them, I sent them to the brother in Atlanta so that I could pay on my Hajj trip. So it just goes to show when you make one step, Allah will fill in with the others, 2, 3, or more. All right. There's one more value out there. Yes, would you read that one? I think it's value number 7.
You are what you eat, literally and theoretically.
Okay, you're a good reader. All right. You read my handwriting. You're good. All right. You are what you eat, literally and theoretically. Somebody talk to us about that. Just a minute. What do you think about that? This is the value system that I grew up with. Anybody? Come on, brother.
You are what you eat.
Literally and theoretically.
We have some do's and don'ts. Don't eat this, do eat that.
Okay.
Don't eat pork because the way the pig lives, his style, the pig style, the way the pig conducts his nature. So we don't eat pig because we don't conduct our nature like that.
Okay, cool.
We want to eat halal, which means we want to eat things that have been killed properly and that are non-pork. So that's literal.
That's literally. Good.
And theoretically, it goes right back to the idea that you don't want to eat pork because you don't want to be like a pig.
Okay.
You don't want to be nasty.
Exactly.
You want to be clean.
Exactly.
You want to keep a clean environment.
Exactly.
A pig will stay in a nasty environment. But a human being wants to be in a clean environment.
Exactly.
Inwardly and outwardly.
Exactly. Close to godliness.
Yeah.
Now, for those of us who are Muslims and have not eaten pork, some of you grown up Muslim, what does that mean? It also means staying away, you are what you eat. So if some of us have matured to the age that we have to eat certain kind of foods, or we have to stay away from certain kind of foods like white sugar, white flour, salt, to watch our sodium intake, to watch our cholesterol. So we have to be mindful of what we eat. But theoretically, it also means to be careful what you take in, because when you eat, you take in. Be careful what you eat. Be careful what you subject your mind to. Be careful what you subject your emotions to. Yes?
I was going to say, Prophet Muhammad says actions are but by intention.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you take into your mind or the way you think is the way you're going to act.
Exactly. So you have to be careful. And we live in a society now that feeds us a lot of different things. We think our children are in trouble, but you have to be on your guard as an adult as well, because we have a lot of stuff coming at us and bombarding us at the end of the day. When I get in and prayer is so, it's more than wonderful, but it's a cleanser, because at the end of the day I said, now, did I say something to offend somebody? How did that go over right? How did that go? So you're thinking about things that you have taken in to your purview or into your space, your thinking space. Thank you so much for all of you who participated in just kind of pulling out and teasing out what my values are. Those are the values that I grew up with. So when you hear me now, you have a more contextual analysis of where I'm coming from. We're going to move right into our next section, which is now, I want to say something about this dash, because I didn't say anything, but this dash, according to Granddaddy Junebug, that's a lot goes in between that dash. It's a punctuation. It's a small little thing. When you go to a cemetery and you see a person's birth to his death, it's a lot that's gone in between that dash. We have to think about what goes in between our dash. Up to this point here from 51 to 2008, I have, in addition to what my family imparted to me, I now have a wonderful husband. We will be celebrating next weekend our 35th anniversary of marriage. I won't say bliss, but marriage. It's been a constant growth, and but I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world. So, in addition to my formation, I have a husband who loves Islam and has been a very good father to our 4 children, Rakaya, Malia, Salahuddin, Abdullah, Umar, Tariq, and Angel Rose. And now we have 4 grandchildren, Ramaya, Samaya, Hafisa, Sadiq Kenneth, named after my dad, and Elijah Joshua. So all of that is in between this dash. All of that is in between this dash. From the time we've come here to the time that we're living now. And also as a result of that, there has been a lot that has shaped and caused me to be the person that I am. And I'm very grateful to Allah for that. We want to move right into, I want to turn this board around now because I want you to be able to follow me. You know, as a teacher or as an educator, and all of us, whether we teach in a formalized classroom or not, all of us are educated. If you're a parent, if you're a surrogate, if you're a guardian, if you're a friend, we educate. And so we've told you a little bit about our background. I currently, all of my career has not been in a classroom. It has been as an administrator, and now I am, what am I? I'm an education consultant with the state of North Carolina. And I am also a doctoral student studying the what makes success for our African American boys. I have a very strong concern for our young men, having had 2 sons, and my husband and I both struggle very hard to get them through the public school, and that's another reason we need Islamic education. But having that as again, that's my contextual analysis. I'm very interested in our young boys and those particularly who fall through the cracks for a number of reasons. And so that's what I'm doing my research on is strategies to help our African American males in school. So that in a nutshell is my dash. Now, I want to, for a few minutes, move to the Holy Quran because that's our guide. Now I brought mine because we are using our experiences here today, but we're also using our guide because once we become conscious and aware, and I must say, there has been a tremendous growth over the years, and there should be a tremendous growth for us as Muslims. No longer can we brag on the fact that I was raised Muslim. No longer can we say, well, I've been a Muslim all my life. Okay, that's cool. That's really great. That says a lot. But if we don't delve into this book to guide our lives, then when the challenges come, when the storms come, and I can identify because I was young. Again, remember I said my parents became Muslims in 53. So that means 55 of my 56 years, 54 of my 56 years, going through adolescence have been, each stage of my growth and my development. And that's why I said something to the young sister as she came in. I'm very sensitive to our young people and their struggles, because it wasn't easy for me. And there are a lot of things that are perplexing, and we deal with a lot sometimes that we don't even suggest or discuss with our parents. And so the sooner we find this as our guidebook, the sooner we find this as our helpmate, the better we'll be in making decisions that last us for a lifetime. For a lifetime. With our 4 children, we've had to pull them out of some snares, you know, and they've had this in their home. They've seen Oliver and I trying and struggling to be Muslim and exemplify what a Muslim is, but that doesn't mean they weren't tempted by the vices that are out there. That doesn't mean when they went off to college that they didn't, my daughter came home one weekend, and I said, girl, what in the devil you got on? Mama uncovered these little leggings that are back in style. These leggings on and a knee-length skirt. I said, what in the devil you got on? Or my son coming home with all these different haircuts and his name and something else all cut up in his head and all this. So it doesn't mean that we live in an isolated bubble because you're Muslim. And we really have to understand that and be sensitive to our young people. And I think about my grands now. They range in age from 9 to 23 months. And particularly my sons, my grandsons. And I've already said, they are not going to public school. We're going to have to start this thing all over again with a Clyde Muhammad, or I'm going to be a stay-at-home grandma or something. Because it's crazy out there. It is insane out there. And it takes their humanity away. My sons went through, my youngest son, Umar, came home one day when he left middle school. I never forget it. He came home, he was in 9th grade. He said, Ma, I ain't going back. I said, what? I ain't going back, Ma. You had to do something. I'm not going back. I got in my car, took off from work, got in my car, and scouted around between North Carolina and Virginia trying to find a school for this boy. He said, it's crazy. The teachers don't want to call on you, and da-da-da, and then the black kids telling you acting white if you study and try to make decent grades. So it's all of that. And so we had to do something. But now, keep in mind now, I'm telling you from the context that my contextual analysis is self-efficacy. So I didn't say, woe is me. Ain't nothing we can do, you just going to have to go back there and struggle. We tried to find something else for this young man. And it turned out to be a military academy where he excelled with all men there in that particular school. So the point of the matter is that there's a lot out there for our young people. When I see these young brothers here, and they're even wanting to be here and here, that says a lot, and we have to protect that. All right. At any rate, I'm hoping that you have a sense about that. We want to look into the Quran again. I can get off track just a little bit, but I'm going to get back on. And we want to look at, out of my formation, I consider myself now as a striving believer. And so before Hajj, Imam Rashad and others, before Hajj, I was wrestling with this whole notion, what does success mean? I want to be successful in life. What does success mean? So I started subscribing Success Magazine. I wanted to know what it meant to be successful. And after Hajj, I got centered. And I realized you need to see what Allah says about being successful, or what Allah says about being a believer. And so with that in mind, and I'm just telling you because we all go through, we don't stay in one state of formation or one state of development. We evolve. And so one of the things that the Quran does a very good job, well, it's Allah's word, so you know it does a very good job, but the Quran has several, if you look in your index, you will see that there's several sections in the Quran, or several verses that deal with the believer. Okay, and in those, I've selected 3 verses that I want to talk about today. One is verse 8:24. verse 8, chapter 8, verses 2 through 4. That's the first one. That's from the Holy Quran. And this is what Allah says. The believers are only those who, when Allah is mentioned, feel a fear in their hearts. And when his verses are recited unto them, they increase their faith. And they put their trust in their Lord alone. Now, we know that this is a translation. I'm not an Arabic scholar, but an Arabic scholar could go in here and take some of these words that may they may have different shades to it. But for the purpose of this discussion today, we want to take a look at that. And for me, I'm going to read that one more time because the operative word in here is increase their faith. The believers are only those who, when Allah is mentioned, feel a fear in their hearts, and when his verses are recited unto them, they increase their faith. When we come out here, a lot of times we don't feel like it, but when we come out to Talim and Juma, being with other believers, listening, really embellishing ourselves and hearing what Allah's word is, that increases our faith. That helps us to go forward the next week and deal with the challenges that are out there. A believer is also one who offer prayers perfectly and spin out of what we have provided them. Some of us are provided, and Veronica said this, some of us have more than others, some of us have less. But we spin out of what Allah has given us. And we are appreciative, and we make our prayers because we were taught that between each prayer, you're strengthened. And then the last one is, it is they who are the believers in truth. For them are grades of dignity with their Lord and forgiveness and a generous provision in paradise. So that's the believer. Now, when I put that up against, and this is a particular article I like, there's an article, and they have Muhammad Ali on the cover of this Success magazine, and he just talks about tactics of being successful. But this supersedes any of this. Because what Allah says speaks to our soul and speaks to our heart. And what I want to propose to all of us, not the young people, not just the young people, but to all of us, that we rediscover the Quran. Sometimes my husband and I were talking, and Sister Man, we were on our way down. We were talking about during our first experience. We literally relied on the minister or the imam to feed us. We have an opportunity to read Allah's word ourselves. Go in it. Do as many of our imams do. Go to the index. Figure out what it is you want to understand and look in there and say, well, I want to understand truth. Or I want to understand repentance. Or I want to understand, it could be whatever. But go to the Quran and ask, and Allah will reveal that to you. And use it as a guide for yourself. All right, the other surah that we want to look at is Surah 9. Ayat 71 and 72, where Allah says the believers, men and women, are helpers of one another. Brother just talked about that before he opened up. They enjoin and you know what, I'm pausing here because in this Quran, they've got all these parentheses of what they're saying, and I like to get to what Allah says completely. They enjoin al-Ma'ruf, which is Islamic monotheism, and forbid al-Munkar, okay, and all kinds of things that are against Islam. They offer their prayers perfectly and give zakat and obey Allah and His Messenger. Allah will have His mercy on them. Surely Allah is almighty, all wise. Allah has promised to the believers, now this is what Allah promises us. Men and women, gardens under which rivers flow, to dwell therein forever, and beautiful mansions and gardens of Eden. But the greatest bliss is the good pleasure of Allah. That is the supreme success. One of the things that I was intrigued about on Hajj was Abraham's Station. And at Abraham's Station, those of you who've gone on Hajj, you know that that is a distinct place. It's pretty much like this. It's made out of some sturdy, something that you can see through. And there are, in my mind, and it may not be, somebody else may have seen it different, but my perception is these huge footprints. Huge footprints, and they're Abraham's footprints. And I used to, you have to move in that area very quickly because there are other people, millions of people trying to get there too. But one of the things that intrigued me was the fact that Abraham is considered the friend of Allah. And I said to myself, I was walking back with another brother from Durham. I said, but what made him the friend of Allah? Why was he the Allah's friend? How can you be a friend of God? Anybody got any ideas? When we think about friendship, a friend is somebody you can always what? Count on through thick and thin. That's a friend. And so Abraham, through his nature, through his obedience to Allah, was able to count on Allah, and Allah befriended him. Wouldn't that be wonderful for us in our lifetime to come to the point in our own, as the Imam said, psyche, that we are the friend of Allah because of our obedience, because of our submission? Just want you to reflect on that for a little bit. All right, we're going to move on. And Allah says in Surah 13, ayat 20 through 24, those who fulfill the covenant of Allah and break not his bond or his treaty, those who enjoin that which Allah has commanded, I take these glasses off, they're bifocals, to be joined, fear their Lord, and dread the terrible reckoning. Abstain from all kinds of sins and evil deeds which Allah has forbidden, and perform all kinds of good deeds which Allah has ordained. And those who persevere, now that's the operative word, perseverance, seeking their Lord's countenance, offer prayers perfectly, and spend out of that which we have bestowed on them, secretly and openly, and defend evil with good. For such there is a good end. You all do things in your life that nobody will ever know unless they followed you. There are things that we do as Muslims to try to help. It may be on your job. It may be to console somebody. It may be a poor person that you see and you try to offer some assistance to. I wasn't able to make Juma this Friday, and my daughter said, Mama, do you remember Sister Quadria? I said, no, Angel, I don't remember. She said, yes, you do. This sister came to the masjid Friday, and she said, please give your mom the salams. And she described her. She said, tell her I was married to brother, I was married to Brother Bilal, or whatever his name is. And so you all don't know, so I'm going to use the name. But anyway, she had strayed and she told my daughter, she said, and tell her I left the community for a while, but I'm back. She had about 3 or 4 children. And my mind, I just kept trying to figure out, who is this young lady? Who is this young lady? She's probably in her 30s or 40s now. I said, who is this young? And then it clicked. Oh, that's the sister that I took a stove to. They were living in a little flat. She had just had a baby. Her husband wasn't working. And I took a kerosene stove and so that they could have some heat because they didn't have heat. And then my daughter said, Mama, you took a grocery store. I said, oh, that's right. You know, sometimes you don't remember everything when you get our age. And so, but the thing of it is, we do things in our lives to help others. And this is what Allah says about the believers. You want to help each other. The man was saying how we have gotten so far away from that. But we can come back to that. All we have to do is want it and ask Allah to help us, and we can come back to that. All right, so when we look look at what Allah says about these believers, and there are others. There are about 10 or 15 different surahs or verses in the Quran that speak to that. But when we look at that, there are some words and some themes that come out of all of that. One is faith. The believer is always faithful. The believer is one who perseveres. And then the believer has courage. I talk to my children a lot of times, my adult children. I tell them, I said, you got to have courage to stand up. You got to have courage to do the right thing. It's easy to do the wrong thing. You got to have courage. And you ask Allah to give you that courage. And then, so these verses offer a definition for what the belief is. It also offers us inspiration in the Quran. And as believers, we have to believe in the seen. That means those things that we can understand with all of our senses, our five senses. But we also have to understand and believe in the unseen. And that's another whole realm in itself. And I'm not going to go there, but I do want to use an example with one of my favorite stories. And that's the story of the Battle of Badr. And my husband had trying to get it. But that's it. I read it one night when I was reading one of the life of the prophet, and it moved me to tears because this was a very decisive battle in the history of Islam. And as I used to be the Sunday school teacher, and I would always be thinking of something I had. And at that time, my sons were in Sunday school, so I was always thinking of something that could connect with the young men as well as the girls. And so I started studying the battles that the prophet had. And so that particular battle, but what's significant about it is that there are two forces operating in that battle. One of the forces is the forces of Shaitan, and the other force is the force of Allah. And Prophet Muhammad, in the days of trying to establish Islam, Prophet Muhammad was anxious. How many of us suffer with anxiety? You don't have to admit it, I do. Anxiety, worrying about what's going to happen next, okay? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Where am I going to get this money from for this bill? And my husband said, Rhonda, Allah take care of it. All around we got to do something. Allah take care of it. But anyway, Prophet Muhammad was anxious. And he cried out, knowing that going through this battle and preparing for this battle, psychologically, he cried out and said, Allah, what is going to happen if we don't win this battle? We won't have any progeny because we're establishing Islam. It's not like we've got children who are second generation, third generation. We're establishing Islam. What's going to happen if we don't win this battle? So there are two forces working there. And what Satan was saying to the opposing force, there you go. I'm going to wipe you out. Don't even worry about it. They are insignificant. We're going to take care of them. We are going to take care of them. Satan said, no one can overcome you this day. This is what he's telling the opposing force. Don't worry about it. They're insignificant. Just a little band of them folk. And I am your help. Okay? That's what Satan was putting in the minds of the opposing force. But what did Allah do? This is the unseen. This is a sample of the unseen. What did Allah do? Allah came to Prophet Muhammad in a dream and showed him the opposing force as something very small. Don't even, you can defeat it. And when the two forces got together, Allah sent his angels. This is just so powerful. Allah sent his angels, and it made it look to the enemy as if this was a multitude of people that they had to fight. And what did they do? They retreated. And there's a tremendous moral to that story. A tremendous moral to that story. And I just want you to envision that. I'm a very animated, very creative person, so I saw the whole battle. I mean, I saw Prophet Muhammad, I saw the opposing force, I saw all of that in my vivid imagination. Okay? But Allah controls And that, the unseen, our perception on things, he controlled Prophet Muhammad's thought patterns. And when he got out there, Prophet Muhammad, it looked as if to the enemy that this army of Prophet Muhammad was just huge. That's the unseen working. And it works in our lives as well. Allah is omnipotent. Everywhere and as close as our jugular vein. So we have to have faith and we have to believe. And so, when we look at Surah 8, verse 45, and it says, O you who believe, when you meet a force, take a firm stand against them and remember the name of Allah much so that you may be successful. So when these forces come up in our lives, when these forces come up and tell us, you can't do it. You're just a small band of y'all folk there at Al Mu'minun. Don't even think about it. You can't do it. Take a firm stand. We will do it with Allah's help. We in the Raleigh area are working to establish in the capital city something that is representative of Muslims, particularly African American Muslims. Particularly. You all have a beautiful facility here. We're working to establish something. One of the things my dad, and I say this every time I pray, oh Allah, help us to establish something worthy and dignified in this city. Because we, as African Americans, helped to establish Islam and made it easy for many of our immigrant brothers and sisters to come here. So we have something to leave as a legacy as well. And we cannot be stagnant. We cannot be complacent. We have to take that baton and move forward. The prophet had much to battle with in his striving community. Even after the battle, you know how we are as folk, and we know how African Americans are as folk. He had a lot to battle with the outside forces, and then had a lot to battle with the inside forces. Because when you're clearing the ground and when you're trying to pay way, you got folks that's, I don't know about that now. Come on now. I don't know, that's a bit much for me. That's a little too much. I don't know if we can do that or not. So he had that on both ends of the continuum. But again, the operative words are faith, perseverance, and courage. And Allah says, go ye forth, whether heavily or lightly equipped. He's given us what we need, and we have to go forward. We live in a society that is very me-centered. One of the things that I've had to do, and I'm going to finish this up in the next 10 minutes. One of the things that I've had to do in my study is to deal with pop culture. Because our children, they live it. And pop culture is something that is a dress, it's an attitude, it's music, it's the media. All of that is pop culture. And it has come on the heels of moving out of the Industrial Revolution into the age of information. And what the mass media has done is to realize the strength that it has and the sway that it has in determining people's perceptions. So, in our pop culture, we have ideas that are being promoted. Some researchers say that these ideas promote misogyny, which is hatred of women. You hear it in some of the rap music. It promotes narcissism. That's an overindulgence in yourself. Okay? And it also promotes a sense of, there's one more. means is that no regard for what's happened in the past. It's just here and now. No, I'm not worried about the slavery, no, Jim Crow, Many of our young people don't have a clue unless we teach them. Because the schools are not going to make that a part of a curriculum where it's emphasized or where it's really studied. And some of us don't even teach our children. We leave that totally up to the institution of education. So in this pop culture, you have the mass media that has really realized what it's done. One of the, and I just want to share, and I'm going to pass this around. There's, and just you can send it back that way. But there are scholars who study this and see how this is impacting the world. Seeing how this pop culture has translated itself into a way that is so pervasive you don't even know you're operating in it. Okay? And so when we think about that, it's something for us to think about, because what we have now is there's a term out called, and I'm going to write this on the board because I really want you to, again, have a sense of where we're coming from and see the need for education. In the field of education, now you know what critical means. When something's critical, it's serious. Okay, it's serious. Okay, pedagogy is just a nice fancy word for teaching or instruction, how it's done. All right, so in the education jargon, we call it pedagogy. But there's a theory out called critical pedagogy. And in the study of pop culture, these critical pedagogists believe that the pop culture, or the culture that's been promoted by the mass media, is one of the, how can I say this, schemes or strategies being used in a capitalistic society. So what do you have? You have, as a result of that, remember that we said narcissism, and you all, I'm going to be done because I know you get tired of sitting. We have narcissism. Narcissism means that you're overly concerned with yourself. So what happens? You have technology that promotes, the iPod. What's the I for? Okay. Me. Okay? You have cell phones. You have iPhones. You have iTunes. I'm going to tune you out. I'm going to tune out everything around me, and I'm going to focus on that message that's coming to me. And you used to, as parents, we used to say, boy, cut that music on, or cut that stuff down. Now you don't even know what they're listening to. So what's happening in the capitalistic society? There is the promotion of the self. Why? Forget about the collective effort. The promotion of the self, because I can hit each and every one of you better than I can as a group. I even see young people in our masjid come into the masjid or come into a function. They got that stuff in their ears, and it hurts me so badly. I want to say something, but today you can't say nothing to children today. Parents will cuss you out. That's my money. You see 9 and 10-year-olds with iPhones, cell phones, and you think, the justification. Sister said, this makes it easy for them to be able to get up with me. What else are they getting up with? What else are they setting up? And so this whole narcissistic culture that's promoted through the pop culture is to break down family. There's a book out, and I forgot to bring it. It's called The War on Parents. The War on Parents. One of the researchers on pop culture did analysis of Beavis and Butthead. I don't know how many of you remember that. I never watched it, but it was a cartoon or something. Right. And this is what this person said. This is Kellner, and he was talking about Beavis and Butthead, the show that was out in the 90s. It had such a rave reviews with young people because it promoted no parental authority and unlimited freedom to do whatever they wanted to, whenever they want to do it. Okay? So if you can deal with the individual, I just want to get to one. My husband gave a coupon one one Sunday, and Tyler, he said, Satan don't want the regular folk. Satan want the sharp folk. Because see, he likes challenges. He likes folk that he had to work at. It's like, you know, and sisters, you know, when the brothers were trying to get us, they didn't like the sisters that could just get real easy. They liked the sister that gave them a little challenge. But that's Satan. That's not Satan. Because Satan wants to put us off of our. I don't even want to make that association. But the fact of the matter is Satan's looking to pull us from the front, from the sides, and from behind. And we have to be mindful. Sometimes, and I used to teach my students, I was a high school teacher, and I would ask them, what is technology? They could tell me all the tools, but what is technology and what is the purpose of technology? Most of us already know this. Technology is what the military has put in place years ago, and there is an effort to make money off of it. After using it years ago, you put it on the market and make it user-friendly. But this is what the military had to use to do their espionage or to go into other countries. This was already in place. And so technology, what makes it so intriguing is that now we have our hands on it, and we have these things at our disposal, and they seem like tools, but really, most of this technology was 10, 15, or 20 years ago. And so in an effort to give it to the public so you can make money, because what happens if you can't use it except in war? It becomes obsolete, so you got to put it out there so the public, I got to make money. I got to make money. And so we want to think about that. All right, and I'm bringing this to a close. The last thing I want to do or ask of us, and I have it as my final bullet, is for us to accept the challenge. Accept the challenge. Now, what is that challenge, Sister Rhonda? Well, look, y'all may need a mashed it up there in Durham or Raleigh. We got a mashed it. We cool. Okay? The challenge is for us to take our guide, which is the Holy Quran, something from our background, something from our culture that we live in, be it pop, be it postmodern, whatever. Put that together to establish a community that's viable for all of us. What do I envision and what would I like to see as a Muslim American woman? I'd like to see a facility that has a place, a nice kitchen, because I like to cook, with the state-of-the-art commercial equipment in there. So when we have banquets, Sister Rhonda and the crew of folks go in there and just, hey. I'd like to see a facility that has a gym where the young people can come play basketball on the weekend. They don't have to go someplace that's not necessarily conducive where folk are using all kind of language, sneaking in drugs, and all. That's what I'd like to see for our community, where my grandchildren can go and play and be safe. I'd like to see a place where those of us who are aging and moving to that particular point in our life, we can go and we can do some quilting. Or we can do something that's crafts or whatever, but a place that houses the needs of our community. A place that has a library where we can sit down and read and study. These are the kinds of things when we talk about community development that we need. A school that has a certain amount of energy just overflowing because young people are there and we're sharing our ideas. We are giving them values and helping them develop attitudes that are Islamic so that when they grow up to be 18 and 19 years old and they leave us, they still want to be Muslim. And it's not one in which I'll be glad when I get up out of there. Ain't nothing there for me. It doesn't speak to anything that's out there in the world that can be returned and made to look good. Everything that we've talked about today is not bad. We have to garner in each of these divisions, each of these areas. How can we use these things to make our lives better? How can we use technology? How can we use our experiences? How can we use the Holy Quran, because it is a book, I call it a living document. It's a book for all times. It's not just speaking to 1,400 years ago, but how can we manifest it? Because we educate our children. My parents allowed me to go to school. We educate them, and then we come back, and it's like when you walk into our community, we're back in the dark ages. I know how it feels. I've been a young person. So the challenge for us, is to look into ourselves, reflect on what Allah has given us, give back to this community, so when Allah takes us, we will feel that we have established something to leave for our children. I
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, one minute, brother. Oh. I forgot I still got the mic.
You gotta answer some questions.
Oh, okay, all right.
You don't get away.
Oh, you got it.
That's what I've been waiting on. A sister that's an educator, but she understands that Islam doesn't fit in her education, but her education fits in Islam. And that's what you love to hear. You know, she was mentioning her father and some of the tidbits that he gave us. And one I've shared with you over the times, he said, manage the moment. And as Sister Rhonda was speaking, I was trying to manage the moment because I wanted to get up and shout like I was in the church. I kept saying to myself, manage the moment, manage the moment. Thank you, Sister Rhonda. I'm sure all of us here enjoy and profit by that. And that's something we can take and embrace that, inculcate that in our hearts and our soul, and make a better life for not only our individual selves, but inshallah for the community at large.
We thank you very much. I'm going to read the announcements, and then we're going to have the adhan, and we're going to do salat, and we don't forget the Sadaqah box. We just mentioned you have to give back, my dear brothers and sisters. This masjid does not function on dreaming, you know. Bills have to be paid, responsibilities, financial responsibilities that has to be met. And the only way we do that is what you so generously give. So don't forget the Sadaqah box. Don't forget congregational salat here. Fajr is done every morning at the masjid. Don't forget your Muslim journal. Buy one for yourself, buy one for a friend. Don't forget community night, the perfect time for community activities, business, and social development. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. The day is getting longer, so it's lighter longer, so you can come out and participate in community night. Any suggestions you have, any comments that you might have, or concerns, please put them in the foyer. Check the bulletin board for other announcements and events. Don't forget to pick up your banquet tickets from Sister Veronica, and please give your ads to Wali as soon as possible. Also, Wali have the Hajj CDs and the First Sunday Life, the Final Battlefield CDs and DVDs. And I encourage you, if you don't have the CD, a DVD of the Final Battlefield, get that. And also, cut out those 3 articles that the Imam did in the Muslim Journal. That is some very, very timely and valuable information. Life, the Final Battlefield. And basically, that's what the talk was on today. Life, and how we're going to battle in this final battle that we find ourselves in. Also, don't forget our Family Unity Day banquet coming up April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of May. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Imam Fahim Shuaib is going to be here again. We're going to have some activities going on. So most masjids, in fact, I think all masjids has that information. So we hope that Allah bless you if to be able to make it to those events. Imam Siraj Wahaj, the president or Amir of Mana, will be speaking at Winston-Salem State on Friday, April 25th at 7 p.m. Additional speakers will be Hassan Bagby. I remember him when he was in Raleigh. He was in Raleigh area, yeah. Imam Qasim Khan. I'm not familiar with him. Entertainment.
He's from here. He's from Winston.
No, he used to be in Martinville, Virginia. He was Kibla Khan.
Kibla Khan.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember Kibla Khan.
Was he in the masjid in Martinsville?
That's right.
I probably know him once I seen him. Okay. Entertainment by Jamil Saeed. And that will be at Dillard Auditorium on the campus of Winston-Salem State. And tickets are $5. So those of you who can make it, go over and hear Imam Siraj Wahaj and Baba Islam Bagby. Huh? April 25th, 7 p.m. Also, there will be a CPC business conference in the Raleigh-Durham area on June the 13th and the 14th. Sister Margaret gave us some flyers. I thought I had one up here. Community in Bloom. Your community fest celebrates the best. Family, friends, food, and fun, and featuring community health information and economic fair. That will be the Sunday, June the 15th, which is Father's Day, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Vital Links. There will be entertainment, a unique art auction, and a special Father's Day and Juneteenth tribute by international guest speaker, Imam W. Dean Muhammad. Also, they're asking, they want this to be a very grand occasion, and they want people from the different masajids to participate in this event, and they will have a conference call on April 20th at 3 p.m. And they have a PIN number and the access code for that teleconference. So those of you who want to be a participant in that, you can either go to the Masjid Al-Razak Islamic Center at 3 p.m. or use a conference call and dial in, inshallah. And that's about it for the announcements. What we're going to have now is Salat. We're going to have the Adhan, and we're going to have Salat. And after that, we're going to ask that the guests be the first one to be in line and be served. then the sisters and children, and then the males you bring up the rear, inshallah. So we want to thank everyone for your presence today. We want to thank the sisters that, and the brothers that brought the covered dishes and prepared those beautiful dishes for us each second Sunday. We thank Allah much for you. So again, we thank Sister Rhonda, we thank her husband, Imam Oliver, for coming and being with us today. And I just want to encourage sisters to be more vocal, be more assertive in studying this religion and making presentations, because it's a very negative image of women in Al-Islam, you know. And when we get more presentations like this, it can change perceptions. And again, Sister Rhonda, we thank you very much. So we'll have the band and do salat, and then we'll partake in breaking bread with each other, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.